opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Well, good morning, CHD, and happy Friday, January 2nd, 2026. It's a new year already. I don't think I look any older yet, so I'm really excited about that. But I'm more excited about today's offering on CHD TV. This is a panel discussion on the alarming rise of turbo cancers after the COVID era. And surprisingly, not after the COVID-19 infection starting in 2020, but after the COVID-19 jab in 2021. In this panel, we have Kevin McKernan, we have my colleague, Karl Jablonowski, at Children's Health Defense, and we have Dr. Practitioner Derek Guillory, medical director of Root Causes Medicine in San Antonio, Texas. So we have multiple perspectives regarding the etiology of these turbo cancers, the epidemiology of these turbo cancers, and then what is being seen in practice in the field with the practitioners on the front lines that are having to treat these unique types of cancers. I really hope you enjoy these panels, this panel in particular. Let your friends know that this is being shown and that they can see this directly on CHD TV, and you have a great day.
One of the words that I grew up with and thought was kind of a keen word was the word turbo, because turbo to me meant muscle cars, turbocharged engines, anything that had to do with jet fighters and airplanes and yes, even astronauts. But a word that you never want to associate with turbo would be cancer. And so we are looking today in this panel with these luminaries, and I'm going to go through the qualifications because they're absolutely amazing. We are looking at the alarming rise of turbo cancers in the COVID-19 era. We've never seen anything like this. It's something that when I talk to practitioners, they call us at Children's Health Defense, or we call them, they see such an astronomical increase in very, very rapid growing cancers in increasingly younger populations. And so I want to start with Dr. Derek Guillory. If you don't know Dr. Guillory, you need to know him. He's the founder and medical director of Root Causes Medical Clinic in San Antonio, deep in the heart of... Thank you. He has a passion for functional medicine that was born out of his own personal struggle with health concerns that began before age 17. He became one of the first certified functional medicine practitioners in Texas in 2015. He got his undergraduate degree from Baylor and his medical degree from the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas. He continued his training in emergency medicine at UT Southwestern Medical Center, graduating in 2004. He's way older than he looks. He has been continuously board certified by the American Board of Emergency Medicine against 2015. His website is rootcauses.com, and he is my son's functional doctor, Dr. Derek Guillory.
Thank you.
I want to start with you. What is it like? You are on the front lines of primary care, okay, which is
yes, that's true.
Unenviable. All of us PhDs that didn't have the stomach for medical school, we salute you. What is it like looking at this wave of turbo cancers, and how do you think your practice has really changed since mRNA shots were introduced, and since you started to see these cancers, in early 2021?
I want to make sure everybody feels the weight. Like, I want you to feel in your body the weight of what we're trying to say up here. So my pause is purposeful. So that's my first goal, is that maybe we share how the feeling is, what it feels like to go through this. I never want to be a fearmonger, but I like to tell people the truth. And the truth is, it is way worse than you think it is, even if you think it's really bad. And that is not to spread fear or worry or doubt. It is only to motivate us to choose, motivate us to act. Because if we know the truth, we can act. Every single person in here that can hear my voice, everybody online, you have a superpower. All of us. And that superpower is sort of the definition of what it means to be human. And that is, we can captivate our thoughts and our emotions, and we can transform them into action, into physical reality. We make, as part of our purpose, physical reality by transforming our feelings and our thoughts into what we see here. So it's worse than you think it is. The rise of stage 4 cancer in 20 and 30-year-olds being diagnosed initially with stage 4 is way worse than it was in 2017 when I started really being aggressive about seeing cancer patients. And this is affecting every single person in here, because we know the little vials of the vaccine that they gave us contained different things. We know that, that's a fact. Some of those things may have been self-amplifying viral particles. So I see rapidly progressive cancers in patients who've not been vaccinated, and in those who have been vaccinated. I see patients who are asymptomatic, who have COVID spike antibody levels of 50,000, 200 times greater than the highest level we would like for them to be. We'd like for them to be 0 or very low. So this affects all of us. And the other really important truth, I hope we have time to go through some of this, is you are the cure. There is not a cure for cancer that will ever come out of any medical industrial complex. Never. It won't happen. Okay? We have believed a lie if we think that they can cure cancer. They cannot. And anything that cannot happen will not happen. But you are the cure for your cancer. You are. There are more than 7 billion cures for cancer, and if we optimize our metabolism, and we optimize our immune system, we optimize our emotional, spiritual state with peace and joy and contentment. That doesn't mean we ignore our anger. We should not do that. But we are the cure for cancer, and also we are the cure for this problem. This is the cure. Community, this is the cure. Absolutely. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did.
I can ramble.
More coming attractions are going to follow. I want to talk to somebody that makes CHD look real good. Dr. Karl Jablonowski. He's senior research scientist at Children's Health Defense. And he earned his Ph.D. in biomedical and health informatics at University of Washington, and then had 3 fellowships with the U.S. Department of Energy, National Institutes of Health, and then Children's Health Defense. You chose wisely. He also decided to stay, which is absolutely amazing and is our benefit. He has designed and worked with terabyte-sized databases, both biological and medical, published 2 book chapters, and his 17 peer-reviewed journal articles related to data mining and analysis for scientific investigations have been cited over 1,000 times, about 10 times lower than what they should be cited. There are 2 more in progress, and Dr. Jablonowski, I want to talk to you about the epidemiology, okay? And Karl he is so ethical, and his work is so straightforward, and not only does he break it down so managers like me can understand it, but he has a gift of really, really bringing these issues home and making these numbers sing. I won't make you sing. When these shots first rolled out in December 2020, since then, how is the epidemiology borne out, especially regarding the incidence of cancer in the United States?
Right, so there are 2 pretty good epidemiology studies on cancer. They don't come from the United States. First, I'd just like to articulate my frustration with working in epidemiology. It is an observational science. It's like astronomy. They cannot perform an experiment on the subjects that they are observing. So you're really stuck with the data that you have observed. Contrast that with an experimental science where you can actually construct a double-blinded, placebo, random-controlled trial, which is our gold standard. With large epidemiology studies, we don't have that gold standard, but where we lack in that standard, we do have the numbers. These 2 studies that have been published on cancer are numbers in hundreds of thousands and millions, and you could never get that in a randomized controlled trial. The first trial was out of Italy, and it had 300,000 people. It was a province just east of Rome, and 17% of the people were unvaccinated, which is a pretty decent mix. And what they found was a 23% increase in cancer for the vaccinated. And that breaks down different vaccines. I did have to write it down because I can't keep it all in my head. Colorectal cancers were up by 35% compared to the unvaccinated. Breast cancers were up by 54%, and bladder cancers were up by 62%. That is shocking on its own. I don't even want to continue down this list, but I will. Blood cancers are near and dear to the hearts of a Ph.D. family and many other families. If you took a Pfizer vaccine in this cohort, you were 50% more likely to be diagnosed with a blood cancer. And if you took AstraZeneca's, you were 362% more likely to be diagnosed with a blood cancer. And that's groundbreaking. The Korean study, in contrast, had 8.4 million people with 680,000 unvaccinated. That is also a really good mix. And it found a 27% increase in cancers in the vaccinated. And that broke down to breast cancers and colorectal cancers and gastric cancers. They were all really high. One of the criticisms that epidemiology studies face is that maybe there was a different healthcare seeking behavior for someone who wanted to get vaccinated as opposed to those who didn't want to get vaccinated. And that's fair criticism. However, the Korean study showed that people who were vaccinated with one type of vaccine, a cDNA vaccine, or in the US we had Janssen, and in Europe they had AstraZeneca, versus a mRNA vaccine, like Pfizer's or Moderna, if you had the cDNA vaccine, you were twice as likely to have cancer. 3 times as likely, specifically for gastric, colorectal, and lung cancer, and a whopping 6 times more likely for prostate cancer. And no single study is perfect, but these 2 studies do concur on bladder cancer, thyroid cancer, colorectal cancer, and breast cancer. And I think it leaves a lot of unanswered questions that need answering.
Absolutely. Kevin McKernan, smartest person ever? Ever. Yeah. Okay, Kevin McKernan, Chief Scientific Officer and founder of Medicinal Genomics, pioneering cannabis and hemp genomics to advance the scientific environment, the study of cannabis-based therapeutics. He was previously the Chief Scientific Officer of Cortigen Life Sciences, Vice President and Director of Research and Development of Life Technologies, and he also co-founded and led Agincourt Biosciences, Agincourt Personal Genomics, invented sequencing technologies that reduced the cost of sequencing the human genome from $300 million to $3,000, a 100,000-fold improvement in both speed and cost. Yes, he managed research and development for the Human Genome Project and probably saved us an arm and a leg and a lot of time. At the Whitehead Institute and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, earning patents for nucleic acid purification. And Kevin actually dared look behind the curtain when everybody said safe and effective, and Pfizer wanted to seal all of the documents and records regarding the clinical studies and the contents of the mRNA jabs, shots, they're not vaccines. And so Kevin actually looked to see what else was in the vials. And so, Kevin, what did you find in the vials? This was the Pfizer specifically, right?
That's right. So Jessica Rose pointed some of this out yesterday. When we sequenced these vaccines, we found their expression plasmid inside vials. They have a requirement to remove that through a couple steps. There's a linearization step where they're supposed to stop it from being a circle. A piece of plasmid DNA is circular, and that circularity allows for it to self-replicate oftentimes in its host. So you do need to attenuate its replicative capacity, otherwise this thing can shed and spread and become a self-replicating vaccine. So that linearization step is one important step. And the second step they were supposed to do was to denace the DNA, which is an enzyme that chews it up into small pieces, such that it's below a 10 nanogram threshold. That 10 nanogram threshold was a threshold for old vaccines. Lipid nanoparticles changed this definition substantially because, as Jessica mentioned, when you inject naked DNA, your body does a pretty good job destroying it. That's not the case anymore. If that were the case, this mRNA wouldn't get into your cells, and it wouldn't make spike protein that persists for years. So this lipid nanoparticle has really changed the definition of what's tolerable, although the FDA, I don't think, has come to this conclusion like the rest of us scientists have, that the threshold they have in place now is impractical. Even with the threshold they have, there's too much of this DNA in the shots, which is what we had found, and we wrote that paper up. Published it, got harassed, got doxxed, and the typical online behavior that occurs whenever you decide to publish something that's against the vaccine narrative. And it's finally been through peer review, but I would download it quickly because it probably won't persist there for long.
Right. Now, when you found this, how would that link specifically to cancers and rapid growing cancers?
Okay, so I confess to not knowing the history of SV40 until I ran into this. I think we saw a great presentation from Suzanne Humphreys yesterday with Judith Ferry Baker. Thank you for that. I can't see if you're out there, but if you are, thanks. I did know about SV40 in terms of it being a tool commonly used in plasmids that you would put into mammalian cells. And so when I saw that inside the Pfizer vaccine, I realized they have a mammalian expression vector as a vaccine that's going into mammals. That is a major foul. They should not have a background plasmid that can replicate in its host. Typically, you have a bacterial plasmid that can only replicate in bacteria. So if any of it is sticking around, it will not self-replicate inside the host. That's not the case with Pfizer's plasmid. It actually has an SV40 origin of replication, which means it is replication competent inside of the vaccinees. That SV40, I think there was a great talk yesterday going over, we don't have the whole virus in this plasmid. We have about 440 bases of it, but they are probably the most concerning elements of the viral genome. There's an SV40 promoter in there, which is a known nuclear targeting sequence that David Dean has shown is what can be utilized in gene therapy vectors to drive DNA into the nucleus. So it's probably the most effective tool we know as a molecular biologist to get DNA into the nucleus. When your cells are dividing, there is no nucleus, so Moderna can get there too. They just have to wait for the cell to divide in order for that DNA to get to the nucleus. It has an SV40 enhancer as well, which is a known somatic hypermutability element. That's a piece of sequence that recruits an ApoBec pathway, which is a cytosine deaminase pathway that turns on usually when virus is around to try to mutate Cs to Ts. So that piece is in there. It's also been published to interact with P53, the guardian of your genome. So this SV40 promoter, Drayman et al. Has published binds to P53. We don't exactly know what it's doing to that gene, but in my humble advice, that gene should be busy cleaning up your genome, not cleaning up Pfizer's product. And so we have a lot of decoy in there. We've got 500 billion molecules of this SV40 in there. Think of it as shrapnel that is distracting P53 from doing its job. And that could be playing a role in what Karl was just presenting. I have seen some numbers, I'd be interested if you can see it in that data as well, that the Pfizer cancer numbers are a bit higher than Moderna's. That's held up in a couple studies now. I think it might be the Czech data. I'll have to confirm that with Steve if he's around. But Jessica has done some work in VAERS on this. John Bodwin has done some work looking at cancer signals as well. David Wiseman's done some work going through the Wonder database. There is data out there confirming what we're hearing from Derek. It's not an illusion that physicians are seeing. It's in the databases our government runs, but their 12,000 employees can't seem to see it.
Selective blindness, really great for corporate profits. For patients, not so much. Derek, give us some examples without revealing names, addresses, social security numbers, zip codes, but give us some examples of the difference in the cancers that you're seeing, what you're seeing now, and what the trajectories of those particular cancers are since the rollout of the mRNA jabs.
First, I got to say, this is not selective blindness. This is wanton negligence and malice. We got to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that this is, you can't, when you do AI questions on all these platforms, every single one, it says nothing to see here. It says there's no data, there's no association, there's no causation, there's no nothing. So this is not just selective blindness. It's something much worse than that. So there are multiple mechanisms of action for the COVID mRNA vaccination or shot or whatever to cause cancer. You don't need to know the specifics about that, but the main ones, I think, whether it's incorporation into the DNA or something else, a decrease in immune surveillance and an increase in chronic inflammation. Those are the two most important things that are happening that are creating cancers, and the difference is rapidly progressive cancers, cancers that don't typically go from stage 0 to stage 4, they're happening, and their initial diagnosis is stage 4 in a young person, a 29-year-old with stage 4 colorectal cancer, right? many, many women, many in their 30s and 40s, stage 4 breast cancer. One of the interesting things, which I had never seen before this, is very obvious fungal infections causing cancer. So you get an immune system dysregulation, immune system deficiency, where your cells cannot control rapidly progressive tumor cells, or the cause of those, which might be a fungus or a bacteria or a parasite or something. And the fungus just is overwhelming the body and its ability to control it. But again, the good news in all this is healing is always, always happening at the quantum level, at the molecular level, at the cellular level, at the tissue level, and we have power over that. So your macrophages, your natural killer cells, your lymphocytes, you have some power over them, and those are the little magical cells that do the work of healing when you don't have cancer and when you do. So, like for me, I give myself 105, 106 degree fever once a month on purpose, because that raises the number of those cells and it triples or quadruples the activity of those cells, and cancer cells cannot take hold, and you have the power to do that as well. So.
Thank you. That is, it's stunning that you make things so simple, and you don't hear things like chemotherapy, radiation therapy. Oh, well, let's kill off the cancer until we kill off the patient. Karl, when you look at just overall what's happened in the United States, you've looked at several different databases. There have been other individuals that have looked at data at the U.S. level, at the state level, and so forth. What do the cancer rates look like, and when did the uptake start?
What was the last bit?
I'm sorry, when did the uptick, I'm sorry, I said uptake, but when did the uptick of these particular cancers start, and are they going to go away in the future? You don't have to answer that one fully, last one fully.
Well,
so.
That one is anyone's guess. But
okay.
So the National Institutes of Health, one of the institutes is the National Cancer Institute, and it runs the SEER database. It's surveillance, epidemiology, end result. And that captures cancer incidence and mortality throughout the United States. And at least the incidence part of that has been recorded since the late 90s. And it tells a pretty horrific story. The United States is becoming more and more cancerous. Every year, we have stepped to having more diagnosed cancers than the year before, over and over again for 20 years straight. Not a single dietary change that we have made, a health lifestyle change that we have made, or any medical advancements that we have made have been able to budge that constant, relentless march towards a cancer society, except one: lockdowns. In 2020, the rate of new cancers diagnosed in this country fell by 10%. When the self-proclaimed freest country on earth decided to isolate themselves because they were told to, they were afraid to visit friends. It was illegal to go to an open-air park. They didn't go to the doctor or take other cancer screening precautions. And new cancer rates dropped by 10% with horrific downstream effect. Now, when I study epidemiology, I like to look at the bookends of what I call the bookends. The people who are very unlikely to get cancer. If you see an uptick in a risk of cancer in that group, there's a problem. The people who are most likely to get cancer, if there is an uptick and you push them over the edge to get manifest cancer, there is a problem. And horrifically, I am seeing signals at both bookends. So for between 65 and 85 years old, people who were diagnosed with colorectal cancer had 11% drop in 2020, and that corresponded to a 4% increase in mortality in 2021. It stayed stable for 2022, and it jumped again 3% in 2023. And that is a hard pill to swallow, that we have potentially done this to ourselves, either lockdowns or vaccines or the virus. And in this database, when we look at mortality rates, given the pre-COVID trends, we should see about a 1.5% increase. In the last reported year alone, which is 2023, compared to 2022, we saw a 3% rise in the mortality of colorectal cancers and leukemia, a 4% rise in digestive system cancers, and a 5% rise in liver cancers. If these trends continue, cancer is going to usurp heart disease as the leading cause of death. It may actually already have. Heart disease has held that status ever since the Spanish flu. And I think that we are about time to change from heart disease to cancer as a leading cause of death in this country. Now, I mentioned the other bookend, which is the really unlikely to get cancer, and that is children between 1 and 4 years old. It's not unheard of and it's not impossible, but there is a really strong signal for acute lymphocytic leukemia, or ALL. It rises 30% between 2021 and 2023. Most cancers do take some time to manifest. There is one outlier in that, and that's lymphoma. Lymphoma can pop up within 1 to 3 months after, say, an organ transplant, where you would be on immune suppressants so that you would not reject the organ. And so lymphomas can occur really darn quickly after an intervention. And for that age group, 1 to 4 years old, the lymphoma rate was fairly constant, is about as constant as epidemiology is before COVID, and it rose 50% in 2021. Wow. It is an odd time, an odd group to raise then, because they're too young to be vaccinated. Vaccinations were not approved for that age group until the middle of 2022. They're too old to have been vaccinated in utero, because they're 1 year old in 2021. It could be the virus, or it could be the vaccine shedding. When we probed the FDA in what they called the strictest health safety monitoring in history, their monitoring was broken, but they did manage to find 3 clinically significant signals: a rash, product ineffective, no kidding, exposure via breast milk.
That's
Yeah,
actually,
sorry to interrupt, that mechanism is very easy to understand, right? Either shedding or virus. We know this happens with other viruses and promotion or progression of cancers, but anything that lowers immune surveillance can and does promote oncogenesis or cancer progression. And so there's a very reasonable explanation for that with regular old vaccine shedding and regular old bioweapon COVID illness. Absolutely.
there are also some papers that particularly track the mRNA in the breast milk, and they're important to pay close attention to. Hannah et al. Has published 2 of them, and in my opinion, that paper is intentionally trying to downplay the quantity that's there. They mentioned that their PCR assay has a limit of detection of 440,000 molecules. For those who aren't familiar with this, you should be able to get down to 10 with PCR pretty easily. So they have a really insensitive PCR assay, and they did that, I think, quite intentionally to show safe and effective. It's only there for 5 days. If they had an accurate, sensitive PCR, they would probably see it there for a week. And when you begin to calculate the numbers of feedings that children go through, they can almost get a full dose of the vaccine through the breast milk, according to their weight, if you adjust the fact that the children's doses are smaller compared to the adults. But there's enough in the extracellular vesicles in breast milk to transfect the newborn with the mRNA and the DNA.
Kevin, when you looked at other physiological tissues and when others have looked at other physiological tissues regarding this modified messenger RNA technology that was supposed to stay in the upper deltoid muscle for 2 weeks, what are the things that have been found, and what are the ramifications of those?
So there's several papers on persistence of the nucleic acids. Most of these papers were published prior to them knowing there was DNA there as well, so they didn't itemize this. So you have to look at these papers realizing they could be either. But the Krausen paper sees it in 30 days in heart tissue. You can go to the Rolchen paper that sees it 60 days in lymph nodes. You can see I think there's an OTA paper recently out for 17 months where they picked it up in a cerebral artery. There is placenta 2 to 10 days, and we've seen it in the plasma for 28 days. And I think I heard Peter McCullough and Nick Hushler mention they have seen some 3 years out. So the persistence of the mRNA and DNA is in some patients it is sticking around, and that is unusual given our T cells are supposed to be clearing any cell that is transfecting and expressing spike. So the going, I think, thesis is that there are immunoprivileged stem cells that are getting transfected by the vaccine, and our immune system will not clear those out. And those cells will continue to reproduce these molecules throughout time. And that can be maybe even the source of cancer, because you don't want to be transfecting stem cells. They can oftentimes, that can also drive oncogenesis.
So what you're saying then is basically these immune privileged cells, then you're taking that particular code that not only the modified messenger RNA code, but any type of DNA carryover, and you're immortalizing it, correct? How long is it going to last?
It's a good question, and I don't want to pin all of this on the DNA or the RNA. I think that there's important points with these vaccines that we're seeing neutrocytopenia and lymphocytopenia, so immune surveillance is down. Whenever you lower you're always cancering. It's just a question of whether your immune system clears it. And so what you don't want to do is lower your immune surveillance and then increase your mutagenic load, and we're doing both. Right? There's DNA and RNA in here that can be lasting a long period of time. And the spike protein has also been published by Wafi Guillory to downregulate P53. So there's an IgG for class switch. There is a long list of things going wrong that can drive cancer. And so this idea of a multiple hit hypothesis in cancer is easily, I think, addressed or satisfied based on the list of things that these vaccines can do. But in terms of the DNA, it does not need to integrate into your genome to necessarily cause this type of problem. There is a pathway inside of cells that is surveilling for foreign DNA. It's paying close attention to the epigenetic signature of that DNA. It looks for methyl A and for a particular signature of methylated cytosine. And when it sees that, it assumes it's viral DNA or bacterial DNA, and it triggers an interferon response. It's a pathway known as the C-gas sting pathway. So just getting the DNA into the cytosol will trigger this pathway. If you do that chronically, it can go oncogenic on you. Interestingly and paradoxically, if you do it once, it might actually fight cancer. So I think if the pharma companies are very malicious, what they'll do is they will put out papers that show people getting a single one of these vaccines might have a slight benefit against cancer until they get their second, in which case it will be worse. We saw them play the statistical game with the 2-week thing. You know, you're not vaccinated until you've, 2 weeks out, and of course all the harm is in the first 2 weeks. I think they're going to probably do something similar with this with checkpoint inhibitors. They're talking about, one vaccine might help kind of thing. Two is not, I don't think it's going to be in their favor. So there's the crime is done once the DNA is in the cytosol, and we do know that we've done Oxford nanopore sequencing on the DNA, and it is methylated. They put it through a coli, and it changed the methylation signature that they had in their first process. The first process was PCR-based. There's no methylation on PCR products. You put it into plasmids, into a coli, it makes it methyl A. That hyperstimulates C-gas sting. So the type of DNA they have there is particularly problematic for that pathway.
Derek, I am living with an addict for Hallmark movies. And so at the end, within 3 minutes of the top of the hour, the situation resolves, they kiss. It's a deep kiss, and then they live happily ever after. How do we get that, and how have you gotten that for turbo cancer?
You need to repeat the question one more time. Say it one more time.
Give us a happy ending, dude.
Well, okay, like I said, you are the only cure for your cancer. There will not be another one, okay? So this magical machine that you live inside or outside, depending upon your view, can heal. So we want to take advantage. How weird do we want to get? We can go pretty weird if you want.
I say, there is no weird. Go for it.
You like weird?
Yeah, we like weird.
Okay, let's see, I'm gonna get personal too. You wanna get personal?
Weird and personal.
Everybody in here eats too much and too often. Okay, we want to stimulate autophagy, and autophagy is the process of self-eating your senescent, problematic cells, including dangerous other cells like fungus and bacteria and parasite and virus, whatever virus is. So activate autophagy. How do you do that? Fast. How do you don't need to read a book on fasting. Just stop eating so often. Okay? Like, start now. Most people can't make it till lunch, but just like push it an hour. You do that, you're going to be served well. Do that until you can do it a really long time. Longer is better. Magic happens at day 7. If you don't have a spiritual experience at day 7, we should talk personally. Give yourself a fever, okay? There is nothing normal about being at 70 degrees 24 hours a day for your whole life. When you move your muscles outside, you get a fever when you start sweating. It's 99.5 is your core temp. I try to do that every day, and I give myself a 105. If I give my cancer patients a 107 fever for 3 hours, many of those patients will spontaneously go into remission.
People aren't microwavable. How do they do that?
We have tools at the clinic that help you. But, get one of the relaxed saunas and hydrate well and support your minerals. Don't overhydrate, please. Most people are drinking too much water, but minerals and salt and water and cook. I have a hyperthermia sauna. I get my temperature to 106 in about 70 minutes. And this is very safe as long as it's tolerable. And you should give yourself a fever, 99-degree temperature by every day is very safe and very normal historically from human ancestral position. If anybody's looked at there's going to be a QR code I think they're going to put out there. If you just go snap the QR code, I'll put in I'm not going to read all your emails, okay, but put in the subject line MAHO, M-A-H-O, on the QR code. Actually, I don't know if you can do that, but we'll figure that out. That's a word I made up for autologous antigen therapy. We're going to go weird. So your body needs to be educated for cancer cells in your body. The only place to get those cancer antigens, your urine contains between 2,000 and 4,000 unique peptides. They're only you. I don't generally do the standard urine therapy that Ed Group mentions. He's great. Listen to Ed. It's online. Listen to what Ed has to say. But I sort of I'm glad to give your doctor or you the instructions on how to squish 6 weeks of oxidized urine therapy into 2 minutes, and we do in my patients every day. We inject their own autologous antigen into their muscle to educate their immune system on the dangerous other cells floating around in their body, okay? And fever, autophagy, encouraging microcirculation, quercetin, beetroot, nitrate support, really healthy vegetables, garlic, all these things that open up microcirculation, activate the little magical cells. You can do this every day for free. You don't need anybody. Just don't eat so much, activate your cells, and activate them with fever as often as you can, and those are about the only options I can give in 30 seconds.
Absolutely wonderful. Absolutely. Now, telling the truth about your health and then telling the truth about the pitfalls of allopathic medicine is indeed a contact sport. And I'm going to throw this open to all three of you, and you can arm wrestle on who wants to go first. But what's been the blowback? What's been the blowback regarding and the sacrifices for telling the truth in this particular issue, as well as others?
I guess I'll take that. So I'm involved in another community just like this that is trying to use plant and fungal medicine. It's a conference called CanMed. We have it out. It's in Lake Tahoe this year. But these physicians have been horse-pasted for 50 years. There's some thrown in jail because they're choosing to use safe natural compounds to treat cancer and sometimes autism and epilepsy. There's a lot of power in natural medicine. In fact, these natural medicines have been in use. Our U.S. pharmacopoeia used to be mostly plant and fungal medicine that we get right out of nature, and now it's down to zero. It's all synthetics. So a lot of the natural compounds, the thing to pay attention to is the therapeutic index of these things. Is what is the ratio between the lethal dose and the effective dose of these drugs? And you want that ratio to be very big. Right now, with something like lithium, it's like 3. For psilocybin, which is a much better antidepressant, it's like 500. Tylenol is 15. Tylenol is over the counter, by the way, and it's an endocannabinoid mimetic. It's really just use CBD. It doesn't have a toxic liver byproduct that can aggravate autism. So there's a lot of these natural things that are out there, and there's communities just like yours who've been trying to get these to patients that have been systematically targeted by and harassed by elements of the government that don't want these things to be out there. There's entire government agencies designed to ridicule them. NIDA is one of them. It's the National Institute for Drug Abuse. We don't have a National Institute of Drug Benefits. Imagine that. And so their job is just to take down all of these generics. And there's more of them out there, and I'm glad to hear about ivermectin getting over the counter here in Texas. Thank you, Mary Talley Bowden. Fantastic. But the important lesson in this, ironically, is we're finding medical freedom for ivermectin in all the states that won't let medical freedom happen for cannabis. It's polarized, right? We have medical cannabis all over the blue states and medical ivermectin all over the over-the-counter ivermectin all the red states. So we have to join forces, and hopefully I can help do that.
Wonderful. Any other thoughts? What is the cost? Karl, the first day that you met me and the first day that you shook my hand and didn't run away screaming, you obviously counted the costs. What are the costs?
Right, well, the day I was onboarded, the person onboarding me said that this might be career suicide. So there's that. You know, retractions are an important tool for science, and because scientific community needs to edit when fraud has been committed. But retractions are increasingly used for censorship. And so we are being censored. Several of the studies that we've talked to about here are or are threatened to be retracted. And you know, this is a pretty hot button issue. If people are polite to you on social media, I would think that social media is broken, because we are receiving quite a lot of haters out there just through social media accounts.
Absolutely. And Derek, when you tell the truth and you have followed the Hippocratic Oath and done one better, actually worked for the betterment of the health of humans, what does it feel like when your head hits the pillow?
Oh, goodness. I sleep really well at night. And I just want to encourage all of you. This is the cure, okay? Us associating privately. I had no influence during COVID. I begged all of the hospital owners and the CEOs and the CMOs, I begged them to let me fund a study, let me staff a study, let me get into their ICUs and do it, and they all said no. I had no influence. Nobody listened to me. And the solution is, you know, God bless Bobby and my brother and my friend. For going to Washington with the snakes and the criminals. Bless him. Oh, bless him. But those people in Washington are not the solution for our problem. We are. We are thousands of little private communities, little private clubs. Make your club. Join mine, where they have no authority, they have no influence, they have no jurisdiction in my church. They have no place in my church. And this is my church. So go do it yourself or join mine. This is the solution. There is no other solution. Okay.
Thank you so much.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.